2, 3, 4. Okay. What is this? This is the first one ever. Welcome to the podcast called Kimchi and Wine, episode number 0. Because I don't know if this is going to be a real episode. I'm Rafi, and this is Marcus. Yeah. He knows his name. I'm always impressed. I'm always impressed by the fact that you knew your name.
Thanks, Raf.
Yeah, I've got too many. Interpol is probably related to that, but let's not get into it in this podcast. So what do we do? In this podcast, we are going to solve the problems of the world, specifically
the first world.
The first world.
Yeah.
What is the first world? Why do we call it the first world? All right. There's this guy, if you don't know, his name was Alfred Sauvy. All right. I think he was a French guy. And in the 50s, he defined this concept of the three worlds. And being the first world were like the most developed ones, and then or the Allies or whatever. I think they included UK and the Netherlands and Belgium and the US. And then the second world was the commies, the red commies. And then the third world was, I don't know, pretty much every country that's not the first two worlds. I think Australia was third world back in the 50s. Oh, that's what he said, agrarian. Agrarian, that's right. So first world were industrialized nations.
Yeah.
Second world, didn't matter if they were industrialized or not. They were just commies. And then the third world were...
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, well, agrarian, like farming,
agricultural.
Yeah, that's right. Like the reason you have kids is so that they could help you out on the farm.
Yeah,
and you had a lot of them because child mortality rates were high. Various reasons. I think these days that concept is kind of outdated. As you know, the world's developed a lot more than what it used to be, and is continuing to develop. But we still use the term, and it's still part of the lexicon. So why not? Why not try and solve the problems that are first world specific? And I don't know if I need to define what's first world, because I think now they've got the Human Development Index. There's a thing called the Human Development Index. I don't know who does it. Is it the UN? I'm not sure. And what they do is they look at certain factors that determine how developed a country is, based on like things like access to
healthcare,
welfare, education.
Yeah.
So you don't have to think about the basics. I guess. It might tie into that Maslow's
hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, that's the one where like the basic stuff has been taken care of, so much so that you don't devote any time into thinking about that, and you're basically going towards what's the top tier? I always forget self-something.
Self-actualization.
That's it. Self-actualization, kind of like enlightenment if you're trying to be Buddha.
Yeah.
So. In these countries where it's the goal is self-actualization, people aren't thinking about where's my next meal coming from. If I don't have a job, I've still got in this country I've got New Start or Centrelink or the Dole as we like to call it. So then the problems that you sort of devote your time to kind of seem less dire,
trivial.
Yeah, so like we think they're trivial, but if you think about it, they're not that trivial at all. Because if the rest of the world is developing to be like these countries who are higher on the Human Development Index scale, then pretty soon they're going to come into the same problems that we're facing, right? And considering that I think still about 60+% of the world isn't there yet. And can you imagine another 60% of the world experiencing the same sort of first world problems that we're having? it's going to be a shit show.
So we're going to leave the real problems to actual smart people, but we think that we can solve the first world problems, the trivial stuff, and benefit the greater population as they're rapidly developing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, why not?
Okay.
It's a service.
Yep.
Why not? And while we do that, we will be eating kimchi and drinking wine. Because
I love it.
there's no reason. I think we were just like brainstorming what we're going to call this podcast. And we just thought, you know what? Kimchi and wine sounds pretty good. Where did it come from? I was discussing something about a bar or something like that in Korea. That's right. It was a restaurant I was walking past in Korea. It was called Pork Wine Jazz. I thought, wow, 3 awesome things in the one place. Why not? Why not kimchi and wine? Let's do that.
So we eat the kimchi?
Well, if you want to, you can.
Yeah.
It's
We're not just going to look at it.
No, we're not going to look at it. And I dare say that we won't be doing this daily, this podcast. Otherwise, my house would need to be degassed every night because kimchi is, if you don't know, kimchi is fermented cabbage, spicy fermented cabbage. It's I don't know what you call like a staple in Korea and a lot of places. It's very healthy.
I call it delicious.
I also call it delicious. And you know what? Marcus makes his own.
I have been known to dabble in the fermentation process.
It's actually really good. I actually really like it, and we finished that one really quickly last time you brought a jar. So let's give this a try.
Not bad. And the wine?
The wine. So today I chose a wild fermented cold weather or cold climate Pinot Noir from Marlborough of New Zealand. And we've been letting it breathe for a bit because when I opened it up, it kind of smelled like Tempranillo, but now it's actually smelling a bit more like Pinot. So, well, that kimchi is spicy.
Good spicy. This is feeling like a very first world affair.
It is, and this is one of the benefits of the first world, where you get to talk about things that are trivial whilst enjoying some of the best things in life, which is kimchi and wine, both fermented. And I guess it's kind of like a reflection on us in this podcast and where we're at. We're kind of still quite green. We're still unripened.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, neither do I. You know, I've actually probably only listened to one podcast in its entirety. You're probably the master of podcast knowledge.
Am I?
I don't know. You always talk about podcasts. So.
I do listen to a lot of podcasts. Yeah. At the gym, passing time.
Yeah,
I don't know. At what point does one become a master, though? Isn't it like 10,000 hours of something? You move into mastery?
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know if I'm at 10,000
No?
hours of podcast listening.
Yeah.
Maybe 1,000. Maybe 10%.
I was always curious because every time, if I'm going to be in the car or on public transport heading to work, I've always got music on because that's the thing that, I thought, yeah, if I put headphones on, it means I'm going to listen to music. But it really, I was like, you told me that you listen to podcasts. Why not music? Why podcasts?
I do listen to music.
Yeah, but like,
podcasts are good.
It's like AM radio, but you choose to listen to it.
That's true. Well, my dad chooses to listen to AM radio. Maybe it's an age thing. Maybe it's getting older.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, not at all. Yeah, podcasts are great, depending on the topic and who's on the podcast. So this one's probably going to be terrible, but
hey, as long as we're having a good time, as long as there's one person who sort of identifies with the first world problem and our solution for it. Oh, by the way, I should say that say a disclaimer that we're in no way professional, accredited first world problem solvers.
No.
Not that there's any accreditation to it.
No,
This
I'm
is
an
just a
accredited
podcast.
first world problem complainer, so I feel like that might give me.
I think you're qualified to sit in that seat. That's for sure.
I hate Mondays.
Oh, I also hate Mondays. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's weird because I always say to people, if you went into a casino and you came across a game and that game had odds of you play 7 times and you'll lose 5 times and you win 2 times, would you play that game?
No.
So there's your work week.
I would not play that game.
Yeah. So there's your work week kind of summarized in a casino game.
That's called the game of life.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So you're playing a losing game, apparently. Yeah. But yeah, Mondays. I used to be, I don't know about you, but I get very, Sunday afternoon and evenings, I get very into my own thoughts. And it, like a bit of anxiety, a bit of status anxiety kicks in. And it's all about all the stuff that you wanted to do, that you still want to do, but you haven't really made a concerted effort towards. And it's not a regret because you made other decisions, but it's just that creeping feeling of time's running out. Like I don't know about you. I think I'm a bit older than you. I've got a decade on you, but in my sort of early 40s, it's sort of starting to have a bit more sway into how I feel on a Sunday evening. I don't know about you. Why do you hate Mondays?
I think I probably have similar thoughts. Maybe not as profound as time is running out at 32. I think I've still got some time. I hope. But yeah, I mean, we spend most of our lives at work. Monday is the beginning of that. And I don't know. There are people out there that get a lot of intrinsic value from what they do. I don't think I'm one of those people, Raf. I think I work to live.
Work to live? To work so that you can earn your survival credits.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because it comes to that whole point of why I think it really intrigues me that governments all around the world measure the rate of employment to say that, who's employed, who's unemployed. And if you have more people unemployed, that's bad. And if you have more people employed, then that's good. But of those people who are employed, there's no actual measurement of the people who are misemployed. The people that are actually working a job, but
they hate.
Yeah, that's really not fulfilling, that they hate. And
Unsatisfied.
Yeah, and it's not really speaking to their strengths as a human being, right? Because we all have differences, right? So I'm better at maths than you.
Probably.
Yeah, guarantee it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're better at critical thinking than I am.
Maybe.
You should probably be the judge of that because I wouldn't be able to if you're better at it than me. I like how you're so sure of yourself. So we have differences and we have a different sort of strengths and weaknesses as well. But not all the time we end up in a place where we are doing the thing that adheres to our natural strengths and abilities. And I think maybe that's the unsatisfying part of it. Or maybe that there's no, purpose. Like you're not working so that you can afford bread or a roof over your head, because you could afford that in this country even if you weren't working. There's people who aren't working that can still afford iPhones. I can't afford an iPhone and I'm working. So I don't think it's about that. Yeah.
It's about fulfillment on some kind of Purpose was a good word for it.
Purpose was a good word, yeah. So going back, it's going to that the top sort of of the top levels of that pyramid in Maslow's
self-actualization. So is that the first world problem we're discussing today?
I think it's naturally veered into this.
The need to work without purpose.
The need to work with purpose.
With purpose.
With purpose.
With purpose.
Yeah, if you think about, I have family who I would call are in third world countries, and they work, and the monthly where the monthly wage is $200. It's barely enough. Inflation is rampant where they are. The staple goods, like the staple foods that they eat, have increased in price by 16-fold, right? So it makes things really unaffordable, and they mostly survive hyperinflation, yeah, and due to sort of unstable fundamental institutions of the country, which is like the rule of law, the political class, and the judicial system. They just don't have that stability. There's corruption, which is rife. I mean, corruption's everywhere. You have to accept that, but it's really rampant and rife in these countries, and especially in theirs. And they are sort of working, and they know they're working, and they know that the work is purposeless, but they're working so that they can earn enough money to buy food. If it wasn't for us and family that they have overseas, sending them money from overseas to sort of prop them up, they'd be pretty much struggling just like everyone else is. And there are people there who don't have that kind of support, who are struggling and rely on charitable organizations and things like that. I mean, eventually I would imagine that will get cleaned up over time, either by a revolution or by pragmatic means, right? Or diplomatic means, or international pressures or sanctions and things like that would allow them to, think about, okay, well, we need to actually start developing the nation for the good of the nation instead of the ruling elite. And then when they get to that point, life will start to get good for a bit, and it will start to look like, oh my God, I can afford all the food, and I can put nice furniture in my house and everything, and I've got a house as well. Now I'm starting to think about, well, is what I'm doing actually, what am I doing? There was a bit of a book that I read, because I only read bits of books. I'm not a very good book reader. I've had one out for like the most of last year and this year, and I'm still not through it. I'm good at maths, yeah. I just can't. Every time I start reading a book, there's like a bit, I read a paragraph, and then I visualize, and then I go off on tangents. I just can't do it. But I read bits of it, and the bit that I remember, and I can't remember what book it was. It may have been Stephen Pinker, I think that's his name.
Name sounds familiar.
He was talking about flow, that guy, the flow state guy. And he said that there's a point where people get to in their sort of mid-50s or something like that, where they've been working and then they sort of wake up one day and they say, the stuff I've been doing has no purpose. So I find that specifically a first world sort of issue that we sort of wake up and go, And some people actually come to that realization much earlier, such as yourself, I guess. But we all know, even when we start, the work sort of that we're doing, whether we're actually misemployed, it takes a bit to sort of, actually takes a lot of energy or courage, I think, to get over that. And do you sort of some people are successful transitioning from what they're doing to something that they love doing, something that does have purpose. Some people just go cold turkey and just switch like that. But most people don't do it at all. And I think it sort of manifests itself later on in life, by your outlook, your attitude, and even your health. I feel like it does affect you physically after a point, if you think about it deep enough.
I agree.
That's great.
Yeah, I agree. See, I was sitting there thinking while you were talking a lot, Raf, but
Cheers.
You're very welcome. Something else you're good at, maths and talking. So it is, for me, in terms of the first world problem of I have to get up on a Monday morning and go to work without purpose, doesn't that sort of steer towards the whole universal basic income as the solution?
That's the solution?
Well, in my mind, it's a solution, right?
I don't know. I think conservatives might have something to say about that.
Sure. I honestly don't know the conservative viewpoint, so I'd be interested to hear what that is. But well, I mean, isn't that like? But in terms of just giving people the freedom to pursue purpose, isn't that where it starts? Like someone, like if you feel like you're passionate and what brings you joy is being an artist and painting. Well, sorry to say this, but the likelihood that you'll make a living out of that is very slim, right? But if you have all of your basic needs taken care of in terms of a universal basic income, great. Then you can pursue it as a career. Maybe you'll sell a few paintings to make a few dollars on the side, but your basic needs are catered to, as opposed to, to make a living, you forego pursuing art and you head off into the corporate world. Before you know it, if you're lucky, 9 to 5, 5 days a week, more likely you're doing, 8 to 7?
Yeah.
6 days a week? You're not painting very much anymore.
No. Yeah. There's points to that universal basic income.
Mm.
On one hand, there's that we're at a point where we can have that as a safety net for everybody.
Mm.
And on the other hand, you have the likes of your Jordan Petersons who are telling everyone to make your own bed.
Mm-hmm.
And take responsibility for your own actions. You are in charge of you. And then there's the libertarian view of, the more you rely on the government, because that's basically where that universal basic income is going to come from, the more you are at the behest of their whims. So you're heading into a more where the government controls your life. And a lot of people are like, get government out of my life. I don't care if I have basic income or not. I can fend for myself. I can manage this stuff myself. So it might actually be a good thing for some who do actually want to pursue something that they feel has purpose. But then are you encouraging a generation of mollycoddled people?
That sounds like a conservative term.
It certainly is. I think I heard it on Sky News. And I like to keep my views completely open. I want to know about everything. We both work in tech, and we're both well aware of the echo chambers that you can get in once the algorithm knows you and knows what you like and keeps feeding you the things that you like. So I'm consciously make an effort to view all perspectives, even the kooky crazy ones. I'm not going to go into the depths of like crystal dildos and things like that. which has been a topic on some. Actually, it was on Triple J. They were talking about it.
Oh, so.
Yeah. So there's your taxpayer dollars.
Great.
Working out there.
Yeah. Get government out of my life.
Get government out of my life. Maybe if they spent less money on Triple J, they'd be able to afford universal basic income. So yeah, there's good point.
Back to the point though, would it encourage a whole generation of mollycoddled? What was the term?
Mollycoddled?
Mollycoddled.
I think it means like really babied. You know, like what helicopter parents do to their kids. You know what I mean? They don't let them get into trouble. They don't let them fall so that they can learn how to get up. So you have a generation of people with absolutely zero resilience to any kind of hardship. And where does that money come from?
I thought that's a different topic because that's interesting. But I thought that I think maybe I'm at a sweet spot in my life where I'm old enough to have a little bit of wisdom, but still young enough to remember school. And, you know, I think back in school and particularly high school and realized that most of what they taught me were not practical life skills at all. They weren't going to help me. And I wish they taught resilience training and, you know, mental resilience would be a really good thing for people to learn. Mindfulness practice, the benefits of that. How to file a tax return would have been great.
That would have been great.
Just general financial literacy at any point in the, 13 years of education that you have to do would have been great.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a different topic, but
I don't know. Wherever it takes us, it takes us. They don't teach you resilience. That's a thing. I went to an all boys Catholic school, and you were taught resilience by the other kids in your class. There was a kid with a really unfortunate name.
Oh, no.
He didn't make it past year 8.
He wasn't resilient enough.
He just couldn't take it. But
do I dare ask the name or?
I don't want to name him.
Okay, yeah, fair.
But let's just say his last name was Sucker.
Okay.
And his first name didn't help either.
This is another tangent, but I once knew a young gentleman whose last name was Rash, R-A-S-H, and his first name also did not help. Yeah, it was very unfortunate.
But they're probably two of the most resilient people.
Yes. Or they changed their names.
Or they changed their names. Or they're in a mental asylum somewhere. So
yeah. Is that I don't feel like that's the most effective way to teach kids resilience. But
no.
It was definitely some lessons.
Perpetuating the cycle, aren't we, of that? That would be good. And I think we've sort of started to get to the root of that misemployment, is that the fact that during education, you're not being taught the things that are most valuable to you later in life when you do end up becoming employed or misemployed. The CEO in Brazil is quite famous. He's a famous guy. He's a quite a good thinker as well. And his name was Ricardo Semler. He's the head of Semco Industries. And he was thinking about changing his company to be kind of more radical, more free. So that so much so that when someone comes in for an interview, it's the other people, like anyone can attend your interview. The janitor can attend your interview and ask you questions. The CEO can attend and ask you questions, right? And you decide your salary, as in what your work is worth. Yeah, it's just all sorts of strange things like that. And of course, you get reviewed, and then people are like, I don't think you're worth this much because look at the shit you've done. It's not really that great. So it's quite out there.
Who reviews it? The janitor?
No, other people in the company, like the people that you're working with.
Like everyone gets to say.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
so everyone effectively knows what everyone is paid.
Yeah, pretty much.
Everyone gets to decide whether or not they're worth that much.
Yeah, that's right. So
interesting.
Yeah, so if you think you're worth a certain amount, you'd be like, I'm worth this much because look at all the shit that I'm doing.
Sounds like a concept that would be terrible, like at face value, but probably would work. But like the idea is so out there. It was in like Ray Dalio talks about that in his book too, right? In Principles, where he came up with this idea that he was going to get a baseball card made for every employee.
Oh, wow.
And so the baseball card basically just said what you're good at and what you're not good at.
Nice.
So you'd be like, this is Rafi. He's good at math.
Yeah.
Not good at reading books. So don't ask him to read a book. And everyone was the way he tells it, everyone was really hesitant. They were like, "That's terrible.
Yeah.
Please don't do this."
Yeah.
He did it anyway, and according to him, it was a huge success. At the end of the day, people were only looped into projects where their strengths were well equipped. They weren't asked to do something that they're uncomfortable to do because everyone was aware. You could say maybe, well, I don't know, he didn't say this in his book, but maybe it stifles people's development if they're not getting pushed into uncomfortable territory.
I think there might need to be a section of what you actually want to challenge yourself on, and then if there's an opportunity for that and someone pulls you into that, going, I want to get into leadership, and if there's a leadership position, they pull you into that, and that's your challenge. But going back to Ricardo Semler, he was talking about when he's trying to hire people to think in this way. He said they've gone through all of this schooling, like 12, 13 years of schooling, and by the time they get to us here at the company, they're already broken. So it goes back to the step one, which is how do you teach kids so that they have this desire to learn. So much so that he's actually, with his wife, they've opened up kindergartens and things like that as well to start them thinking about a different way of schooling. The classes are not age dependent, and they're run by not teachers, but they're run by experts in the field. So like if you have an engineering class, it's run by an engineer, not a teacher. And the subjects, like a couple of example subjects, one was how to build a bicycle. So if you don't know anything about it, then you need to learn maths and how to measure things. You need to know dynamics and engineering, materials. And the other one was more of a social kind of subject, which is a course. And I think that the question was, why are there so many black soccer players in the Netherlands team? Yeah. And then you have to go through history and then find out parts of migration and history and the story and the culture and everything, and how they ended up being a diverse mix of people in a country which, like on face value, would be predominantly white Europeans. So it got people into that mode of, if I want to find an answer for something, I need to get curious and do research. So that curiosity level is being enhanced at a brain level. Yeah. So it forms a basis or a foundation for the rest of your schooling, in that you get curious about things rather than being told what to be, rote learning or something like that. Yeah. So and maybe that'll work. Maybe that'll be. By the time you get to be at an age where you're employable,
you could build a bike.
Yeah, you could build a bike. You can be like, I can build a bike. I don't need to.
And I know all about Netherlands soccer team.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, that's right. So I can be in organizational development or organizational culture. I can provide that kind of value to an organization. As opposed to a more hands-on sort of thing.
So who is this guy again?
His name is Ricardo Semler.
Okay.
Yeah, so he took over his father's company when he was really young in Brazil, and they were a shipbuilding company.
Yeah.
And he came in. He started to. He was like 19 or 21 when he became CEO.
Wow.
Yeah, back in the 60s or 70s. Yeah, it was a while back. And he came in with some pretty radical ideas, and he had a bit of a falling out with his dad, and his dad was like really traditional, and he was like saying, "Dad, we're not going to survive the next decade if we keep doing what we're doing. We need to change." And so he said, "I can only do it if you get out of my way and let me run the company." So his dad took a risk. He took over the company. A lot of people were upset by what he was doing, but hey, he's doing all right. They've grown the company from a few hundred employees to over 5,000. And they've got, like I said, the things that I've mentioned already. Plus, they do this thing where they allow you to retire for 1 day a week. Yeah. So the basis being, you work all your life. And like I say, we spend a lot of our time of our life at work, and you work all your life, and then when you retire, you want to do the things that you didn't get to do when you were busy working, but you're too old to do them, or you're dead. So if you wanted to go, I don't know, windsurfing or something like that, you're not going to be able to do it when you're 70 years old, or the enjoyment's not going to be right there. So you say, okay, well, I'm going to retire every Wednesday and do the thing that I would do if I was retired on a Wednesday. So that's what you do. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It reminded me, I read a story, maybe like an anecdote about a Mexican fisherman and a Harvard graduate.
I've not heard this one. Yeah, no.
I'm not gonna do it justice, but it was basically that. It was like a Harvard grad on holiday down in like Mexico, and met some like local fisherman who goes out fishing every day, catches a couple of fish, brings them back, sells them at the market, brings some home for dinner, and the Harvard grad, I'm definitely gonna butcher this, but the Harvard grad's like, what do you do after you finished work? And he's like, well, I go home, I play with my kids, I play guitar, I go down to the local pub and I dance with my wife.
Yeah.
And the Harvard grad's like, yeah, okay. And then he starts talking to him and he's like, I think I can help you here. If you should catch a little bit more fish, stay out there longer. Don't come back in the afternoon. Don't come back and take a siesta or a nap and play with your kids and all that sort of stuff. Fish all day, catch more, sell more at the market, make more money. Yeah. I'll help you. We'll invest that money in a second fishing boat. Yep. Soon you'll have 2 fishing boats out there all day catching more fish. Yep. And more money coming in the bank, and then we'll buy a processing plant, and we'll have a fleet of ships, and we'll be packaging fish and shipping it all over the world, and you'll make a fortune. And the fisherman's like, okay, sounds great. What do I do then? He's like, well, once you've made all that money, then you can have a siesta and play with your kids and play guitar and dance with your wife. And the fisherman's like, well, that's what I do now. Yeah. Yeah, it's just to your point. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense. I've actually heard a joke along the same lines, but
I might have started as a joke or an anecdote or something. But the point, that was the point essentially.
Was do the thing that you want to do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to retire.
You want to retire on a Wednesday? Yeah. What would you do?
Play golf.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Should I play golf?
Yeah.
I've got clubs. I haven't played golf since 2009, January.
Do you remember the day?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, because I almost died on the way to work that day. So, yes, I was having a late shift. I was still where we are now, and I was having a late shift, and starting at like 1 or something. I met my friend early in the morning. It was a nice sort of summer day. We played golf, and I went to work later in the afternoon. Yeah, and that's why. And almost died, and that's why I remember it. But yeah, the clubs are still in the garage. I've played a couple of times, just with friends, but it was a different kind of golf. So what's it called? Ambrose golf.
What's Ambrose golf?
I think you just smack it and then run. It's like the first one who gets the ball in.
Oh, ridiculous!
Yeah,
I would play golf. I've got a set of clubs. They're like hand-me-down clubs. Just some new, most really old. Yeah. And I always thought, when I get time and I start playing lots of golf, then I'll invest in a new set of clubs. But just never had the time.
Yeah, there you go. And you potentially could, and that could end up being something that you're actually good at.
Who knows? Maybe I should have been up there with Tiger.
You could have been.
I'm probably pretty short. Tiger looks like he's got long arms. I've got short arms. But you never know.
It's core strength. It's all about core strength. Yeah. All right. Well, looks like we've delved into or touched on a few sort of solutions to first world problems. And I think they're kind of big. Like universal basic income or reforming education.
Yeah, I don't feel qualified to be proposing either of those solutions, which I feel like we have, but sure.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, so, okay, there you go. Reform education. We sound like politicians because they speak in like vague terms like this.
Yeah, fix it. Teach them about tax returns. That'll solve it.
That's step one, because everyone's going to have to do it.
Yeah, true.
That's a necessary evil. So how about that? Or how about how to buy your first home if private property still exists?
I wish someone taught me that. Still struggling.
Yeah. Well, I'm not there either. So it's the things like the absolutes, like taxes, death was another absolute, but I don't think they should teach you how to die. Yeah, they should.
The resilience training could be part of coping with death.
Well, yeah, resilience used to be called failing your class and repeating your year level and not getting a participation award if you came fifth in an event or something like that. Or just, it used to be like your work is really, really good, therefore you get a grade called an A+. Your work is shit, you get an F. And then
that was the resilience lesson?
That could have been the resilience lesson. If you don't fail, you don't know how to get up and try again. You don't learn to walk by people holding your hand all the time. It's just you keep on falling, and then you learn how to not fall. That's what walking is. I've learned not to fall. Yeah. Oh, that's odd. Yeah, okay. That's a bit. So walking is learning how not to fall.
Not to fall.
Yeah. There you go. So if you want to walk with purpose.
Don't fall. No?
No, I think I bit off more than I could chew.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty big. But I guess in the interim, anyone who's listening who is actually working and or getting into the workforce, or actually on the tail end, it's just the realization of, are you misemployed? Have you ever thought about that? And these days you probably don't get the chance to very much because there's so many distractions, and a podcast isn't really all that revelationary in terms of making you make a life decision based on, hey, I listened to one podcast by these two idiots and now it's changed my life.
Idiots being the operative word there.
Yeah, correct.
It's doing some work.
That's right. Doing the work of the idiots. Idiots represent. So I guess it's just a realization that if you're in that maybe you are in the first world and you are misemployed, or maybe you're not, and you can see yourself getting to that point, and you have started to work. I was chatting to a friend of mine, and he said, and I was telling him about this podcast, and he said, oh yeah, that's pretty novel. I'm like, yeah, so this is the concept, first world, developing world, whatever. And we're trying to solve the first world problems to help those who are going to get there soon enough. And he said, you're late. It's already happening. It's already happening. Yeah.
The solutions to the first world problems?
Not the solutions, the actual first world problems in the third world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like rising middle class in China and India.
And all that stuff. So but I feel like there's something. It's different. It's something's missing from those cultures, from those societies that are starting to experience the same first world problems or similar, as opposed to the more traditional sort of first world nations. I think we'll get into that possibly in a later episode or something like that. I think we've waffled.
We have waffled. I would say we were trying to solve finding yourself performing meaningful work, right? Work with purpose.
Work with purpose.
Yeah. And we talked about universal basic income, which we're not qualified to talk about.
Probably not. No.
Yeah. Maybe we should find someone qualified to teach us about universal basic income. I'd like to hear the conservative viewpoint. Like, I'm very uneducated on the topic, and I'm like, makes sense. Yeah. Pay some people to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Cool. Everyone's happy. So maybe we need to get someone to tell us about the complexities behind that.
And I'm sure there's many.
Education reform seems like a big one.
Yeah, it's always on the tip of tongue. I always hear it being mentioned. Yeah. But I don't know what's changing.
It is a solution to purposeful work, though, because, like, I don't know what your experience was, but my experience through school as well, in terms of setting yourself up for the future and having a career guidance counsellor. And did you have a career guidance counsellor, or was it just me?
Yeah.
But my reflection on that was they would look at your grades and they would basically point you in the direction of, like, the highest possible outcome that your grades could get you. Like, great grades, you should go and do law.
Yeah.
Because, and that's just in the pursuit of, well, money, I suppose. Like, what's the maximum financial benefit you can get out of your grades?
Yeah, it pays more.
Yeah, great. You good student, you should be a doctor.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and maybe that needs to be reformed. Maybe that's a mistake.
That is. I mean, I went in there not knowing what to do. And he was like,
know
oh,
what to do.
you don't know what to do? Be an engineer.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool. And I started.
Sounds good.
It sounded good. I actually, I'll probably have a confession to make here, but I went to uni not knowing what engineering was.
Yes.
Yeah. And I had to ask someone who probably wasn't all that qualified to answer the question. And he was like, building bridges and shit.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I could do that.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that, yeah. I think that's part of the solution.
Part of the solution?
Needs to be fleshed out a little more than what we've done here.
Probably, yeah.
But it's part of it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Well,
Where to from here?
Where to from here? We'll probably, I don't know, do another one. Because this was kind of fun. Just talking shit, eating kimchi and drinking wine. I don't mind doing that. And if there's people that are willing to listen to it, then...
Probably isn't, but my mum might.
There you go.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if I had friends, I'd tell them. But, I'm that guy who talks whilst eating kimchi and drinking wine. Yeah. And, those kind of people don't usually have...
Friends?
No. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, pleasure. We'll come back with another episode. Cheers to the first one.
Cheers.